It's the 2nd of April here in Malvik, and we're going to look today at one of my absolute favourite perennial vegetables. It's a plant called, in Latin, Hablitzia tamnoides, often called the Caucasian spinach or the climbing spinach, sometimes called the Nordic spinach because it was discovered as an edible plant here in Scandinavia in the 19th century, and has been used in at least a small way as a food plant until the present. It's a plant that can it actually climbs up these poles here into this birch tree during the summer, and can reach at least 3 meters during the summer months. Now, on this particular part of my garden, these what we see in front of us here are two, difficult to see with the snow, but these are two traditional raised beds which I dug back in the early 80s. So they're about 37, 38 years old now, and on this part of these beds with this very large birch tree, it was basically too dry in the summer to grow traditional crops. If I tried to grow potatoes here, I'd get almost no yield. At the same time, growing a perennial vegetable like the Caucasian spinach, which is most actively growing while it's still damp in the springtime, I can get very, very large yields. And this is an incredibly early producing vegetable. As you can see here, even in my garden at 64 or so degrees north, these shoots have already come up, and 5, in some cases 10 centimeters tall at the beginning of April. They're used both as a salad crop. You can just pick a leaf or a shoot and eat it raw. Delicious. Or you can use it as a spinach crop. Later in the summer you can also use the older leaves and the top shoots. Very productive, incredibly early. In fact, I've been using shoots of Hablitzia this year. It's been a relatively mild winter for at least 2 months. In this area of the garden I have, well, in recent years I've been collecting cultivars or old plants from different gardens across Scandinavia, where plants that were originally planted 100 years or so ago have survived in old gardens, and I've been collecting them and comparing them to see if how much diversity there is. In addition, I've obtained plants from plant explorer friends who've actually been to the Caucasus and got hold of seed from wild plants in that area, and they are quite different in their appearance. In this area there are 5 different cultivars. We're going to go around the garden and have a look at different plants that I have. In this area we have this one here is called Espoo. It comes from, well, it's a place called Espoo in Finland. Very cold climate there. Here we have another one which I got from Jonathan Bates, who has a nursery on the east coast of the US. And over here we have the only surviving Norwegian old plant. Some of these plants can easily be getting on for 100 years old. And on this bed here we have 2 of my oldest, or actually it's a cutting of my oldest plant, which is now about 17 years old. And over here is a seedling of that plant. In fact, the first time it self-seeded and I looked after the plant and planted it here, and it's actually, if you can see that, it's seems to have heaved itself out of the soil. In this area the soil is very shallow as well. There's no more than about 15-20 centimeters of soil. In fact, along the edge here you can probably see the bare rock where I've dug a trench to keep the roots of this very large birch tree from invading these vegetable beds. Okay, let's walk on and see a few more of these Hablitzia plants. It does self-sow to a certain extent, okay, we're just now approaching the house where I have my oldest Hablitzia, the one that I planted originally in 2002. It came from a Swedish author called Lena Israelsson, and this plant here, you can see it, it has probably a couple of hundred shoots at this time. Being in a relatively kind of south-facing, mild location, this is the one that starts producing earliest in the garden here. But it certainly doesn't need to be south-facing. Prefers to be in the shade. It's a woodlander, and it's growing next to a very early allium here, Allium paradoxum. And over here I planted an accession which I got from Arkanoa, the seed savers in Austria. See it there, a couple of years ago. And when we go around towards the north side of the house, Hablitzia prefers to be in the shade, and this is this is the Norwegian Hablitzia from a rectory garden, Hadsel Prestegård, in Vesterålen in the far northwest of Norway, where it was rescued by a local nursery some years ago. A bit further along, that climbs up on this frame during the summer, and then down here we have actually one of the wild accessions. This is the one that was originally collected by Justin West and Lian Fo in Georgia, in the Caucasus. Must be 6-7 years ago now. Then over here I've also planted Hablitzia on the north side of these traditional vegetable beds. Here are my perennial kales, which have survived very well this winter. On this bed here we have another accession from Finland, from Tampere in Finland, doing very nicely. A bit further along, let's see, if I can find it, there's another one here, which is from Norrtälje in Sweden, an old garden there. A bit further along here we should find another one eventually. Let's see. Yeah, it's just about popping through this one. This is another wild collection collected by Tycho in Denmark. I'm not sure exactly why that one should be. Maybe I've buried it in soil in the autumn. But still alive. And finally, you can find it on this bed here. We should have another one. It seems to have here somewhere. That comes from the botanical garden in Uppsala in Sweden. It's temporarily disappeared anyway.